Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Times
Hello.
podcast. I'm joined with all these mugs on the screen, and we're going to talk about the 60th anniversary specials, anniversary, any extras that were made if people want to talk about them. But the main chunk will be our three specials that came out, of course, written by Russell T Davis.
On
You
the
guys are
subject
all,
of mugs, I don't know if you can see mine, but there's a message for you. What it is from Hamilton. It says, "Talk less, smile more."
unfortunately, it's just being absorbed by the vortex.
I'm absorbing the mug.
Yeah. But obviously, you guys have heard at least one person's opinion on each story that is in the Zoom, and all three of mine on each story. So that's kind of, we've got a nice little mix here today. I think the best way, I guess, is to go in a linear order of each story, and then at the very end we can do a wrap up and all that sort of stuff. But before we get into the stories, does anybody want to talk about any extended stuff that was made or they really liked, or figures,
Are
or
we
add
talking
merch,
around?
or
Are we talking around the 60th in general, or are we talking
yeah?
around these? Well, I think we should probably give some props to the Children in Need minisode that we got, which was absolutely fantastic. Big fan of
Yeah.
that. I know it's caused a bit of discourse, but big fan of that myself. Um, I know that on one of our sort of regular weekly things we talked about Tales of the TARDIS, but I don't know if these guys have got anything they want to add on
It
Tales of the
was
TARDIS because that was actually
It was very good.
it was glorious and it was
It's very good.
beautiful. No notes.
yeah. Except that maybe something with the Eighth Doctor would have been quite nice.
They're
Or
they're
Tom.
they're
Yeah,
fun, but I mean
or even just Louise and Canine or something like that.
they're fun and nice in their own way.
Yeah.
Sadly, they're all the sort of same, but I don't know how you could change it so they aren't all the same.
Yeah, that's
You
true.
know what I mean?
I think some connect better than others. I think the
Yeah.
one with Katie and Danny Anthony, the one with Sylv and Sophie, the one with Peter and the one with Peter and Janet, I think they all kind of maybe hit a little bit harder
Mm.
because they might tie more into real events or actual real significant events in the show. That's just
Yeah,
me.
I thought that was nice. I mean,
I think there were in the sort of Sylv one and the Peter one, there were clearly two things where it was stuff that was left unresolved from the series and they could resolve. With the Katie and Danny one, that was really nice because they got to talk about obviously Sarah Jane and and Cliff, and that was lovely. With the other three, it kind of felt a little bit like well, we've done three, so we might do some more. They were all
yeah,
nice.
but yeah, they certainly there was no bad ones. I mean, there's also nice ways for a lot of
It
new Who
it
fans to watch classic
definitely
stories if they're that well inclined and they want to watch shorter versions of good classic episodes. It's a good way of
it
doing it as well.
definitely is a great idea, especially if they want to consider doing like more linking narrations for missing episodes. I think that's a great way for them to be like, oh, I remember such and such happened, and then link
Yeah.
into your existing.
Oh no, the
I
monitor's
mean,
working
on
again.
on the subjects of shorter versions of classic episodes, obviously everybody should go and watch the colorized edit of the Daleks, which is
Absolutely.
wonderful and brilliant.
Yeah, a really good achievement for everyone involved.
Well, nearly
Absolutely.
everyone involved. Less said about the music, the better.
Ooh.
For those, I think more than I think anything else is everything that's gone on to iPlayer. To be honest with you,
Yeah.
Very
that
true.
that's that is the biggest thing because there's no, I don't think there's anything that's been comparable in such sheer volume of one show that has gone up on iPlayer.
That's a really good point, actually. Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And there was a beautiful letter in last week's Doctor Who magazine, which might have won Star Letter of the Month, all about how lovely it is to have all the classic stuff there on iPlayer,
Yeah.
and how it's now signed and subtitled and audio described. And yeah, in future, Alex, you're going to be introducing me as prized correspondent.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. You have to get at least like 5 times for that to happen. You got back to back. You got
Well,
to
no,
retain.
I mean, I've had two letters printed, so I am a correspondent, and I've won a prize for one of them, so I am prized.
I suppose. But
Price
look,
Pillock.
winning
yeah,
the
you probably
competition.
prize pillar. Well, like, yeah.
But
I
there you
love.
go. Well, I mean, as long as I'm prized, I don't mind.
Fair enough. What?
Stop.
What?
Daleks in colour.
We talked. Yeah.
Daleks in color.
I know, but I've got something to add.
All right.
Right.
The
Rewind.
the music was glorious. I think I'm one of the only people that loved the music in
You're
it.
in the minority.
I mean,
Because
Unfortunately.
I
the
was sat there,
volume.
I was sat there the whole time, and Beef can back me up on this. I was just laughing because, and I was generally going, you know what, this is stupid and silly, but fun, and I was vibing with it.
Can we
I
talk
didn't mind
about
it.
You do realise
that
this wasn't.
glorious montage?
You do realise this wasn't Russell T Davies, right?
Yeah,
Right. Okay.
Can we
I
talk
wanted
about
to
the
add
glorious
into it.
montage at the end?
Oh yeah, the
Uh,
montage at the end was beautiful.
Gorgeous.
And you know the colorization, the vibrancy of the colors was great. I'm just pleased that I watched it with audio description. And the fucking music was toned down.
I like the Adventures for Time and Space update as well. That was really surprising.
Well, except for the fact that they had to delete out literally every reference to an unearthly child.
Yeah.
Just get rid of 8 minutes.
Have you seen the original one, Oshan?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I didn't clock.
Yeah,
Like
like
the new
anything,
one.
anything from the scripts, anything relating to Unearthly Child / Tribe of Gum / 100,000 BC,
Gum.
whatever
Oh
you're
my
going to call
God.
it, they basically had to cut out. If they'd-
Also, I
if
like
they-
the
if they've
musical.
If they'd not changed the bit at the end, they'd have been able to keep it in. But because they've effectively made a new edit of it,
They had to
they had
change
to
it.
take it out.
I like the I know this is like a few weeks before, but I also like the musical stuff and the documentary that David Tennant did, where they would go look back and look at like the cast members through time. I thought that was
That
really
was a good
interesting.
Oh,
one, too.
yes.
That documentary, to me, you're on about the Talking Doctor Who one. For me, I enjoyed it, but it felt like a lockdown project in the sense
Yeah.
that it was presented by David Tennant, and then you've got David Tennant being interviewed, and then
Yeah.
you've got David Tennant reacting to things.
They
all
had
within
no
the
idea what they were
same-
doing. They were just
Yeah.
like,
I
"Oh,
love
There's
it.
so many different angles
Yeah.
it was coming from. It was.
I loved when he was
that
reacting to the regeneration footage
yes,
of
yeah,
Tom to Peter.
yeah, that was
that
really
was
fun.
like an hour long, and David Tennant could quite easily sit there and talk about Doctor Who for about 5 hours, and it should have been 5 hours. There should be a 5-hour edit where you can just watch the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. They even don't even add out the pee breaks. He leaves. He walks off screen. He goes for a
He's a
couple
man.
minutes.
Well, you know, he's a man of a certain age now, isn't he? You know,
I want David Tennant to narrate and present a 5-part documentary on the JNT years, because I think that'd just be glorious.
Just get David Tennant to present anything.
Well, yes.
It could be like a blade of grass, and it's be interesting. Now we can move forward to the 25th of November, special
sorry.
one, the Star Beast. I was sat with Reese Marshall, who was very drunk and very hyper. It was really funny, and he was slapping the TV remote with excitement. He was shaking me. He was loving it. He couldn't wait. And then the episode ended. And I think this is the one that everyone agrees with mostly from social media reaction. Like this is the one where most people have a similar thought, and that was it's good. Right?
I mean, fair play to Reese Marshall, by the way, because if I was sitting and watching a new episode of Doctor Who with you, I'd need to be drunk as well.
Yeah.
It was definitely the crowd pleaser.
Yes, that's the best way of describing it.
It was to draw the old audience back. It was also to please the fans, and it was also there to draw in a new audience. And I think that it ticked all 3 of those boxes.
Yeah, I
And it
think
did
it's
them
just
very well.
I gotta say, as the first special, I love how it didn't drag. It was literally boom, TARDIS lands, he's going. It wasn't, like why did my face change? Yada yada yada. It was just boom, go.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's the one that seems more like an episode of Series 4 as well. I think that's the one, if you had to pick up the 3, that could just slot straight in there.
I mean, it is basically your standard Monster of the Week stuff. It was, for me, it was a very safe bet, rather than maybe the other 2 specials. This is the one where they've gone, we're going to make something that's a solid 7 or 8 out of 10. Everybody's going to like. Very few people are going to go above that and go, oh, this is a 10. very few people are going to go below a 5. Everybody's going to go, oh, yeah, that's really good.
Yeah. Beef, what were your thoughts? I actually don't know your thoughts on Star Beast, so.
Yeah, the pacing was good. It hit the right nostalgia buttons. Do you know what I mean? It gave you the good feels and everything like that. It handled what would be tricky subjects really well. The visuals were good. It set up everyone, and you knew who they were within an instant. So that did well. It didn't like you didn't struggle to try and catch up on backstory and everything like that. I mean,
Yeah,
if you want to get into the finer points, yeah, there's obviously the intro bit at the start. I understand that. Yeah, if I had to lay a criticism on it, the resolution is just a bit muddled and done a bit quick.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, I think the intro is the one thing that I think like it's what is I just skip it now when I watch it. I just go, I'll skip a minute half in. I don't need to, But I think apart from that, I think it's the one that it's the easiest to rewatch. It's the one that's most like, your afternoon Doctor Who. You don't want to put anyone in on telly.
It's
It's gonna be
it's
too
it's a,
too
it's a
mind
comfort
taxing.
watch. It's a
Yeah,
comfort
it's
watch.
a really easy comfort watch. I think that's the best thing to put in it. Also, you have that really good TARDIS sequence at the end. So I think that's the one thing I remember from it. Is just how excited David Tennant was to roam around the TARDIS like a little
brilliant.
kid. But any other points about Starbase? I think it's the one that people won't want to talk about the least because there's not too much really to dissect and go with apart from it's
I mean,
just
yeah, I mean, 2 points really. Massive, massive, massive props to Miriam Margolyes, who was absolutely fantastic. Some brilliant voice acting in there, and to the wonderful Ruth Madeley.
yeah.
Long may she stay in the Hooniverse.
Two characters that I think people really like. I think the way the meat was done as well is a technical marvel for Doctor Who. Because I just assumed that the evil meat was all CGI and it wasn't.
Mm.
So that's what I assumed when watching it. I just thought, oh, they've used the physical prop as much as they can, and now it's all just CGI, but it's not. Yeah, like I said, I think the ending is the only bit where you kind of go, okay, well that happened, and then you get there and then it's done.
I mean, yeah, I think you're just willing to let that go because to say that they just let it go is like, okay, well, it feels a little bit like a real easy way to do it, but yeah.
You gotta move on somehow. He wanted to bring her back, and he's like, oh, all right.
And the only other thing that does interest me, which is something that someone else pointed out to me, is like, why did the Doctor put a kill switch in Donna's head?
Just yeah.
And it just makes me wonder if all the
I
companions have got one and what it is.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, to be fair, that's fair play to him because he did it very quick. If it's implied that he did it while he wiped a memory, he did that very quickly. With his force head touching powers. Yeah, actually,
I don't think that's how he wiped her mind. I think that's just him knocking her out. I think her actually getting her mind wiped was off screen. That's how I always thought of it. Anyway, I just thought that was just
bit of the old Venusian Aikido, isn't it?
yeah.
It's just because when he touches her, you see all the flashes. So that's how I assume he just does it in that moment.
I think it's putting barriers in, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Safeguards.
Yeah. But no, I thought it was really good. I think it's really fun. Now we move on to potentially the most interesting one. Wild Blue Yonder. The second of the two specials. I'm going to take a back seat here because I know my opinions on it, and
you do that.
Yeah. Who wants to go? Actually, John, let's go to Elijah Beef or Oshan because they weren't on the show during this. So we'll start with those guys, and then people that were actually on that episode can come back in and swing in. So I think that's the best way of doing it.
Okay, so this one was the one that was kind of the mystery out of the three. Went into it obviously not knowing anything. The takeaways were from this for me were it wouldn't have worked without David and Catherine because that duo pulled it off so well. I would say it's a story I wouldn't go back and watch. Like the rewatchability for me isn't there. It's definitely a midnight style episode. It was an interesting concept. I'll give him that. Wouldn't say it's bad, but it's it's your standard alien spaceship Doctor Who story. So that's what I gotta say.
Beef and Oshan, I leave the floor to either of you.
I'll let Oshan go first. Go on.
I would say I'm personally, I'd say it's probably one of the best episodes we've had in a long time of the show. I think for me, this was a 10 out of 10 when I watched it, and I think it started as a 9. Rewatched it again, went straight to a 10. I think Catherine and David, well, obviously they're the only people in it really, but they are the best thing. I think that's happened to the show, and I think that their performances, and this really acts as like a character piece to the Doctor for stuff that I didn't really care about, but something that I think really builds on ideas from the past era. And yeah, you really have a feeling of just it's just a character piece for the Doctor really, and you kind of learn a lot from him and how he's, well, it kind of ties it all together with all three, but how he isn't ready to open up to anyone yet, and he does, and the person he does open up to isn't even real. So I think that's a beautiful scene. And yeah, this has a lot of brilliant scenes, especially the ending. The ending caught me off guard as well. That's a brilliant bit.
Well, we all love Bernard. I think that's the one thing that I think no Doctor Who fan is going to criticise. That scene in itself is perfection. But Beef, wobbly are you on the 10 out of 10 side? Where are you sitting?
No, I'm not a 10 out of 10 side. If I'm honest, this one for me was the weakest of the three. It was interesting because I've never seen, obviously, Doctor Who do quite as much expansive, CGI backgrounds as they've done in this. But I also like the fact that they use practical effects, because that does really show on screen. The effects that went into Starbeast and this, you can see where they've really upped their game and their monster work and everything like that on it. And obviously Starbeast is quite hectic, so this slows the pace down. It takes out the sonic screwdriver, which has been complaints with. It takes out the TARDIS, so it's sort of, it's literally everything stripped back to bare bones. So yeah, there is more interplay character-wise between the two of them, but it just feels a bit meh for me. And that's just my personal thing. I mean, like I've said to you, the thing that I equate it to is sort of Raiders of the Lost Ark, is that if the Doctor hadn't have shown up, the outcome, or even to be honest with you, with the Doctor there, the outcome would be different. It would just, everything would happen as it happens. So it doesn't, there's no sort of effect to it. So it's just what I think it's just what what you personally take away from it and how you feel, that you get from it. It's down to the Doctor what he says has happened to him. This is their 15-year catch up, but most of it is directed at the aliens. I like the idea that there are shapeless forms and they're trying to sort of assess you and everything like that. It's the edge of the universe. Okay, I get, I don't have any issues with the setting or the framing of it, but it's just like, I'm not going to go back and watch it in a rush, to be honest with you. I could have taken it or left it, to be honest with you. I don't feel like if I hadn't watched it, that I'd have missed anything massive.
Right, yeah. Right. I reckon I'll go next. I know the next two people love
So
it.
much for your back seat. Go on.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm kind of with Beef. I don't dislike it. I don't hate it, but I certainly don't love it. I think it's held up by some great performances, some great CGI in places, but some really dodgy CGI corridor, which when that's basically main setting is a bit of a dud. I still don't get the gravity mavity thing. We've had that conversation here before, but I still don't understand the point of that. The ending with the TARDIS just popping up out of nowhere feels a bit stupid and a bit kind of, oh, the TARDIS knew that this was the second it was going to blow up, so it can come back now and quickly get us. And then obviously when he gets the wrong Donna, it's just a stupid scene just to add more drama for 2 seconds and get the right one. All right, cool. Yeah. But no, the bits that work for this really work. So most of the visuals work really well. The performances are great. Some of the conversations are really useful, and the fact that you don't know who's who at a lot of points, it shows how good the direction is. Because if this is done really badly, you would instantly be able to tell that's this person and that's the real one. Whereas there are times in this where you really can't tell who is who, and that is down to not only Catherine David's work, but the camera work and the writing and all that. So there definitely is things to have, but this definitely isn't a anniversary episode for me. I think as an anniversary episode, it's a bit of a letdown, to be honest.
Do you
as an
think the marketing for this episode maybe pulled you to a side? And
How
what
could
do
you,
think?
as Russell said, how could you market this episode? Once you turn
Hmm.
around and say this is what's going to happen, it completely loses it.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's one of those where it shoots like if you couldn't market it, like you said on the podcast, it feels like that might have been a negative because people did start to assume things were going to happen. You know, I don't know. I just think it was the one that I went in with the most hype and I was left the most cold. But I suppose when you have the most expectations, that's going to happen if you don't enjoy what you saw. I guess. Saying I didn't enjoy it is incorrect. As a special, I feel let down. If this was in a series of Doctor Who, I would just think it was an all right episode, and it wouldn't be the bottom of the bunch, but it wouldn't be the top. I think that's how I'd describe it. As an anniversary special, as an episode of Doctor Who, yeah, it's all right. That's kind of where I am. But I know the next two people really, really love it, so I'll let them gush over it for a few minutes and enjoy themselves.
After you, Connor, because I want the final word on it. So, after you, mate.
Easily David and Catherine's best performance in anything ever, and I will. That's a sword I'm willing to die by. I just think that it was so well executed. It felt so claustrophobic and at times so uncomfortable. And I think the comparison of to Raise of the Lost Ark beef, I don't entirely agree with you because the whole point of the episode is it's a character study on the two leads. It doesn't matter what the situation is. Sure, the situation there would have been the same, but the two leads are physically and mentally changed by it. They are shaken to their core and and I think as we saw in the giggle, it has consequences leading straight into the giggle, and the Doctor's whole mindset in the following episode is based purely because of what happened on the spaceship. And I think that it was a needed. I've seen some people compare it to a filler episode. I don't think that's true at all, because you need those character when you've only got 3 1-hour specials, and you've got the first episode. The first hour is a romp, and you're going from place to place, person to person. There's so much going on. You're trying to do everything, and then the second episode is where you get to learn about the two leads, where they are in their lives now. Sure, we know a little bit about the Doctor, but again, this is a new Doctor wearing an old face. Whereas Donna's been away for 15 years, she's got her kid, she's got her husband, Sean, she's got a new life, and she's had that life for 15 years, and she's a different person to when she left the Doctor. She's not on the phone gossiping about someone lying about calories this time. You don't see that happen at all. The only bit you get of that is in Starbeast, where she goes, "Oh, Neris." That's literally it. She is a mature woman now. I mean, Donna, what would be early 50s in this? So I just think that it's a nice little study of where these characters are at, and the events of the episode change them as characters. And I don't want to waffle any more than I already have, because I think that John is going to say exactly what I think about the rest of the episode and every other element of it.
Yeah, I'm completely with you on that. This this isn't an episode where there was a problem to be solved. It wasn't about that. It was about letting these two wonderful leads absolutely act their socks off, which they did. As I said last week, when you got something with 60 years of history behind it, it becomes increasingly more rare that you come across something where you go, oh wow, that's a really interesting idea, and we've not had that before, and I'm it's wonderful and new and fantastic. This did that for me. I was sat there at the end of it like, this has done something that I never really expected from this show. I completely understand why it's polarized people, why some people are cold on it and some people aren't, because I absolutely love it, because it's a horror story, and more than that, it's a psychological story, and psychological horror is probably, along with comedy, one of the most subjective genres that you can cover. So this was always going to have some people going, well, I don't get it, and some people going, that's the best thing I've ever bloody seen. Personally, I don't mind having an episode like that now and then. I would rather have an episode that leaves a significant portion of your audience thinking they've just watched one of the best things they've ever seen, than an episode where everybody goes, well, that was a bit good, wasn't it? Tennant and Tate, outstanding. The performances are absolutely outstanding. I know there's been some criticism of people saying, well, there should have been like a giggle two-parter and this shouldn't have been in there. I think the point to be made is that if you do that, then you lose that end scene with Bernard, because where else, how else can you do it, rather than leading into your final story at the end of this story? And that, although the episode itself has polarized people, that end scene with Bernard is something that has united a fandom that simply loves to be at each other's throats all the time. Yeah, the practical effects were glorious. David and Catherine were outstanding. I've seen people suggest, oh, this and that companion could have done it. No, it wouldn't have worked with Peter and Jenna. It wouldn't have worked with, say, Chris and Billy. It wouldn't have worked with Matt and Karen. Wouldn't have worked with Jodie and Mandip or anybody like that. This only works with the unique chemistry and friendship that you have got between David Tennant and Catherine Tate as people. You know, it's a magical thing that they've tapped into. And actually, when you look back over their previous episodes, it's something that hasn't happened very rarely. You know, throughout series 4, so often there were other people tagging along. You had River, you had Martha, you had the rest of the Noble family, and then in the end you had the massive ensemble piece. And then you had sort of Midnight and Turn Left, where there was only really one of them in it. So there were only sort of 3 or 4 episodes in series 4 which were pure David and Catherine pieces. And yet they come back together, and it just seems seamless.
I think you could have had it with Peter Davison and Janet Fielding. I think you could have done it with them.
I'm not sure they've got quite the same chemistry as David and Catherine, for me.
The only reason I say that is because they're between the two of, because it's not like a student-teacher relationship, if you know what I mean. They're not afraid to face. They're happy to like face off or like just have very frank conversations with each other.
I think the issue you have with that is that in the Fifth Doctor and Tegan, where things were left off, and certainly kind of over their last series together, there wasn't the same level of trust maybe as there is between Donna and the Doctor as characters. So I think that's where it works. It's this double-edged thing of actually the relationship between the characters as well. I grant you it'll be interesting to see with Peter and Janet, but I'm just not sure how you would make it work so well with those characters.
I guarantee you, we all had very similar discussions when Sleep No More came out, and that's a sort of that's another one where they've gone for something that was a lot different. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and that was shit.
That was awful. It was horrendous.
But there were people out there that thought it was brilliant.
Beefy, one of those who thinks that Sleep No More is top hill.
It's one of those ones like this where, like, if the Doctor hadn't showed up, it would have played out the same way. And someone made a really interesting point. I remember when we were discussing at the time, is that the story is done from the point of view of an unreliable narrator, because you're getting not the Doctor but the scientist's account of it.
Yep.
So that's skewed, and it gives, if you think about it when you're watching it through that prism, it gives it a different edge to it than you would have if you just sat there and did a blank watch through on it. So there's more depth to it than I think you can have as well.
Exactly. Well, let's get on to the biggest of the anniversary specials, episode 3, The Giggle, which came out last week. Obviously, we spoke about it last week. So again, I'm gonna shift the floor over. And Arshan, you've been a bit quieter in recent times. So I'll let you start with The Giggle and your thoughts on the last appearance of David Tennant. We don't know. It might not be. Might be. Who knows?
Before I talk about the last episode, I just want to congratulate Mary Gold on making a really good soundtrack for all these 3 episodes. I mean, it's what you like. I can understand people not being really happy about him coming back. I can understand the complaints that he had, but I think that these episodes, and especially the Giggle soundtrack, I think at the end where the Doctor's talking about the finally discovering his face is really good. And I can't wait for Shooty, because his theme is already becoming one of my favorites. I think that ending was amazing.
That has reminded me the last thing I was going to say on Why Blue Yonder. The soundtrack was just fucking amazing. It was like listening to something by Tangerine Dream. It was.
So The Giggle, Arshan, what do you think?
Sorry, and the episode itself, I really enjoyed it. The first time watching it, I thought, okay, that was really enjoyable. Really enjoyed it. Watched it again the next day. Amazing, genuinely amazing. I think that you can argue about that last, the decision that they end up doing. And at first, when I heard some theories and leaks going on about it, I wasn't too keen. But I think the way it's handled in the episode is actually brilliant. And I think the idea of it is new and exciting. And like Russell said, fans love new ideas in Doctor Who. So I just thought it was bold and brave, and Neil Patrick Harris knocked it out of the park. And I do wish maybe we had a bit more of him. I know that he was in the episode a lot, and maybe the resolution was a bit quick, but they had to end up a few things for the what's to come. But I really enjoyed it, and I think that definitely the standout stuff in this episode was Neil Patrick Harris and David's performance at the end, and Shooty. Oh my god, and Shooty! I'm so excited for his run.
Yeah, right. Well, this is obviously John O'Connor who wants to go next. Who wants to?
You weren't first last time, can't you? Want me to chat in now? Or
Go on.
I enjoyed this. I do think it needed another 20 minutes. I felt that I wanted more Toymaker. I think the chemistry between David and Neil Patrick Harris, the chemistry between David and Shooty, the chemistry what we saw between Shooty and Neil Patrick Harris, I wanted more of that. Like the thing with the time split between 1925 and 2023, it felt like we didn't get enough time on the unit base, and we didn't get enough time in the Toymaker's shop, and both were kind of done a bit of a disservice. I think it was just trying to do too much in an hour. and there was absolutely nothing saying, oh, this has to be 60 minutes. They could very easily have made it an 80-minute episode. They did that with the last Regeneration episode, where they tried to sell a story on the same scale. And I just, yeah, I just wanted more of it. I like the unit setup. I like that From Somewhere unit have got the money to buy themselves Avengers HQ. Right. Absolutely adored the Spice Girls section. Brilliant to see Bonnie back as Mel. Again, great to see Ruth Madeley back as Shirley, and the stuff with the accessible TARDIS. I think it's interesting what they're doing with Kate's character, and that's led to me having some ideas about where they might be going with that. I think we could see a kind of rogue version of Kate over the next couple of series as things progress. I would say that there were one or two lines in this that jarred with me, where I kind of thought, Russell, why have you done that? Like the Catherine's line towards Shooty of, oh, do you come in different colours now? It's like, you didn't need that, and you could literally have just stopped that at Bonnie saying, oh, you're beautiful, and like that's it. And the line from Kate to Shirley of, I've seen you walk. I know some disabled people don't have a problem with it. I know that some do. For me, I think it was something that they didn't need to include. You've already established that she's got the wristband switched off and she's being a bit of a twat. You didn't need to go there. I will only forgive it if it feeds into something bigger around Kate's development as a character down the line. Because for me, when you've got kids watching that, how many of those kids have turned around in a school playground yesterday morning and might have said something similar to a classmate with a disability? You know, but everybody brings their own experiences to it. Everybody takes a different view on it, and you know, no views are invalid. It's just a concern that I and a lot of others have in relation to it. Love Shooty, absolutely beautiful. No notes for improvement there at all. The last thing I want to say, because I think it gets kind of lost a little bit to everything else in the episode, I think we should all go and rewatch and focus and listen to the part where the 15th Doctor turns around to the 14th Doctor and says, you've not stopped running for a long time and you're tired. Because I think we all get into a vein where we keep on going and we keep on going and we keep on going until you can't anymore. And I think there's a really important message there that I wouldn't want to get lost alongside everything else.
Yeah, you just quickly jump in before Connor does. I know what you were referencing with the shared line of some people. It's like a not two-way street, but there are people that don't mind the line. I'm on the people that don't mind the line because I was thinking about this the other day, and I was talking to my friends actually, and again, it all comes down to your interpretation and as a kid and stuff. But I remember my friends would say if they were to say that line to me as a kid, I'd probably find that funny and engaging. I get that some people wouldn't, and they'd find it like you know, it's all about how you interpret those and if you can, you know, if you see it as a joke or not. But I mean, that's just another way of looking at it that I didn't look at it. And they were like, "Well, would you find it funny if somebody did that to you?" And I was like, when I was younger, probably like it's referencing a show that I like, and it's. But again, I can see the harmful aspects of it. Like you say, it's entirely how people interpret that. It is entirely how people interpret that. I think, like I said on the Giggle podcast, I think you can include lines like that, and you should go to those levels. I think it's important to go to the extremes of representation. I do. I do. I get why some people it's triggering and things like that, and we should absolutely listen to that. I think if you don't go there, the representation is not as effective. Personally, I think
So,
personally.
so why not have a villain say it rather than a character that has historically been known as an ally?
Uh,
It's why I
I
don't
get.
have a problem with it's why I don't have a problem with the line that the toy maker says in the pre-credits, because he's a bad character. He's not something people are going to emulate.
I think it all comes down to the context of Kate's mindset and maybe the muddling of the explanation of how those bands work and what the giggle actually does.
Which is, I mean, it's why I've said that I'll forgive it if they go to a place with Kate's character that I think they might go. If I can just come back, my concern is that we live in a society where hate crime against disabled people is on the rise. We live in a society where we have both a government and a right-wing media who are constantly pushing the kind of rhetoric that line that Kate said uses. I think it taps too much into a real world, real societal problem that causes real problems for disabled people.
That's absolutely fair. That's absolutely fair. Like I
I'm
said,
going to say,
exactly.
every disabled person's viewpoint on it is valid.
Yeah, I do, because it's all just tapping into everyone's thoughts and feelings and stuff. But like I said, I don't mind the line. It's kind of why I again obviously as a white man I don't have as much strength on this. It's why I think the dead like why I think Russell put the dead naming scene in there. I think if you show the extreme of something, it makes the representation more effective. Now again, I can't talk about the dead naming because I don't fit into that representation. But I think the further you go with it, the more effective it becomes personally. That's just me. That's just how I see things.
But again, what
But
sets that aside is that those aren't sympathetic characters that were doing that.
yeah, but I don't think it was in a sympathetic state. So I think that
She's
then negates it.
she's traditionally a sympathetic character.
But she
And
has
it's not,
been.
and it's not like the giggle puts words into somebody's head. It simply releases their inhibitions and gives them a strength to believe that they are right. So what it's saying is that this traditionally positive character who is an ally has this view.
Well, this is where I think it's muddled in the writing of what the giggle does because,
It's very
like,
clear.
like well, like no, but this is why I think where the execution is a struggle because, like we discussed on the podcast last week, me, Beef, and Elijah, we were talking about how that scene doesn't really add up to the rest of what was established for what the giggle did to you. It kind of felt like a weird aside. I know that Beef was questioning to us what the giggle did because of that, and we were trying to work it out. It felt like.
I think it's very clear from the entire episode that what the giggle does is it releases people's inhibitions and gives them a belief that they are right. It takes away societal expectations, if you like, and feeds into people's more primal needs and opinions. That's all that we were seeing throughout. With the guy with the chart where he's talking about I say I can't drive, etc., etc., etc. It's all about people just believing that they are right and therefore having the confidence to say whatever is in their mind. It's not manipulating their minds at all.
Yeah, I suppose it's one of the things where I don't know if that scene was a bit of a fumble within the writing or what have you. Because like I say, it all depends what happened with Kate Stewart. But
Yeah,
Connor,
I have a feeling that it feeds into something else.
yeah, Connor though, I've read messages about you weeping to this. So I can only assume it's tears of entertainment, joy, and bliss, and not this episode of so shit. Please, why am I having to watch it again?
Soft lad.
Wow, I fucking loved it. I loved every little bit. There's a couple of lines, like John said, that I was a bit like about, um, but overall, 9.5 out of 10 for me. The the toy maker was written fantastically. Neil Patrick Harris was just magical. Again, Tennant and Tate top form. Mel Bonnie Langford back this time. Mel with a character. She has been RTDified, like I said she would be.
All right, Louise.
And then the whole spice up your life scene was was classic RTD, but also fresh and new. Shootie's energy was just off the charts. I'm totally for it with the bi-generation thing. If it means that in different timelines other doctors are running around, great. The fact that there is a doctor who is, or a version of the doctor that is left to heal after the last 60 years of events from our perspective anyway, and to actually sit and rest and heal with his best friend and a family unit beside him. I just think it's beautiful. There's an element of poetry to the whole story, how it all comes full circle from the original RTD era to now, but as well, it's a nice way of closing off the New Who 2005 to 2023 period. Let's go in, Shooty, fresh face, and it's just gorgeous. I mean, I enjoyed that episode so much. I thought that, in tribute to Shooty, I thought I'd do this podcast just in my pants.
Oh yeah,
So,
I mean
you're
that's
welcome.
that's just classic, like 2020 year one uni though, isn't it? When you're in your bedroom and you've logged onto your laptop to join a call Zoom, you're just still in bed. Yeah.
You
It's
say
classic.
that, what you don't realise is I've recorded every single episode of the Timeless podcast that I've appeared in my pants.
Fair enough, man. I don't. There's been days where I've done it in summer. It's more. But being Elijah, obviously, we filmed this recently, like literally 2 days ago, from our perspective. So I don't know if you guys have any other thoughts, or you've watched it again, or you've thought.
I mean, I hadn't finished, but go on.
Oh, no, sorry. Do you want to?
No, go
So
for
you
it.
just gave me your number score and you got to the end, so I didn't know whether you.
Yeah, to be fair, you did give him a score.
I mean, I did, yeah, but I hadn't finished the point. But go on.
I mean, I was just going to say to those guys if there's any differences in opinions. I know that me and Beef are more on the mixed side. Elijah was a lot more positive and kind of joining with these lots. So
Still the same. Love it. Very much enjoy it. Watched it again last night. Still holds up.
Beef, anything from your point of view? Because obviously, I know.
Like I say, just sort of like echoing sort of like a couple of people, like Oshan said with the music, but I'd like to sort of the set design and the everything like that and the art department stuff on this episode is absolutely fantastic. It's 100% the interplay between David, Catherine, and Neil Patrick Harris really does carry this episode. I agree completely with John that yes, it needs more time. There needs to be more time spent in the Toymaker's domain to get the full scope of how people enter into the games with it, and to actually sort of flesh out the Toymaker a bit more, because you only really get cliff notes on it. And by the same token, I think you'd need to spend a bit more time on the resolution that you get in the unit building, because that seems a bit crammed too. Shooting, no notes. Like I say, the energy, its vitality, and everything like that, brilliant. But also, obviously, the stronger stuff that John was talking about and everything like that. I do feel it got muddled, and because you forget that everything else that is happening in the world, and I wanted it to be better. I'd have preferred it if it had been sort of saying that you're amping up your people's like subliminal prejudices, or their prejudging and everything, a profiling and everything like that, not just as like, well, this is my opinion and it's right. It's sort of like fleshing it out fully, because it's too important a thing to not do in the right way, because it affects so many people. I do feel the story contradicted itself at quite a few points. It was, to be honest with you, it was the writing thing was muddled, I think, because they were trying to do too much in too little time, which is what flew it down. The bi-generation I don't have a problem with. Like I said, and like John's already said, with the show that's run for 60 years, you want to sort of freshen it up, do something a little bit different. But I'd like it to have been done with a caveat to how the Doctor Who remains, what happens with him. I don't want it to be that he just exists infinitum, because I just don't feel that does any service in a show that is about change. you know, and moving forward and progressing, to just have this sort of extra appendage that's just flapping around. You know, it wants to be, this is the future, this is shooting, this is it going forward. And at points it felt a little bit like, well, yeah, no, this is being engineered for the purpose. It felt like it's being engineered towards spin-offs and going for Doctor Who 2.0. And I don't want to feel like it while I'm watching the program.
Yeah, I liked your Force Ghost idea that you were talking about with the David Tennant Doctor, of that he was there for about 15 minutes, and then but the byproduct of my generation is that he goes away. I
Like
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 that.
an echo of it, and then it can
Yeah.
just be, then it's just shooty and nothing but.
Yeah.
What I love is the fact we've now had by generation, we've had the Timeless Child, and yet still 40 years on, nobody's got a fucking clue who the Watcher was.
No, not a clue. Just a white, nothing.
And to be honest with you, if that, yeah, it's a couple of things that have just like come out in the last few days about saying, no, the Doctor's never stopped. There's been a couple of people, and there are like internet whatevers, but saying like, what about Beryllium, and what about the planet called Christmas? And it's sort of like, well, actually, I didn't think about that, but there is points where the Doctor did sort of stop. Sorry, Stephen Moffat, I might have actually just like run off a couple of bits that you did build into this. So yeah, and they are valid points. I can't dispute that.
But as I said in our chat the other night, I mean, not the podcast, just chatting between ourselves. If this means that in a couple of years' time, in a sort of 6-month spell where we've not got a standard series going on, we get some specials with Sean Pertwee as the third Doctor, I am absolutely not fucking bored with this.
But there's going to be some very not suitable for kids child episodes that take place on Gallifrey.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I did actually go listen to the Russell the commentary, and it made it sound like it was like a, not within our universe, it was a multiversal thing. It wasn't every Doctor.
The Doctorverse is what you called it.
Yeah, yeah, which to be fair, I'm happy with, because I think the Doctor, our Doctor from our timeline, by generating every body, is a bit of a cop out. I think it gets rid of all the deaths going to get rewritten. So like the one that makes me laugh most is the Ninth Doctor just makes out with Rose, sacrifices himself, but oh no, he's back. He made out with Rose, and he gets to stay around and do stuff. Or
Tennant, I think if I snogged Minnie Piper, I'd regenerate.
Yeah. Or David Tennant sacrificing himself for Wilf, but then he's back at, and or the 11th Doctor on Christmas. It takes away all those kind of things that the Doctor does. If you it takes all those sacrifices, so I don't mind it in a multiversal sense. But I personally, but I am not personally. It doesn't come from me at all to that the 11th Doctor is now back out there. And I say, John, actually, that I don't think you need the Doctor to generate to have that Sean Pertwee series. You can still have it, and it makes sense. It's obviously like B said with Big Finish, you do just have adventures that you don't see.
But this gives you a legitimate reason to do it, whereas before there wasn't really one.
I suppose, yeah, I suppose. But I think like Beef again, you made another good point. You're like, oh, but Big Finish exists and other things like that. So there are settlements and places where stories we haven't seen have already taken place.
Yeah, Tim Treloar, much as I love him, doesn't look like John Pertwee.
No, I'm not saying bring Trim Lord to do it. I didn't, I was just saying that there is an expanded universe out there which we haven't seen. Even the 11th Doctor's done shit with a really, with a different voice and a different man taking the role on and stuff.
I think what sometimes I think we forget is that we come from quite a privileged position, most of us, in that if we want to listen to something from Big Finish, we can, and we've got the means for it to be accessible to us. A lot of the newer stuff with, say, the 11th Doctor, or with, say, the 3rd Doctor, actually isn't out there for free amongst their ranges. So, although it's there, it is. Big Finish ain't cheap.
No.
But I would say if you were to do any sort of television programs and everything like that, you're sort of like doing Shooty a bit dirty, to be honest with you. The pure focus should be on Shooty. He's the guy in the job, doing the role. Let him have his time to shine.
Yeah, which is why I said that if I wanted a Sean Pertwee series, it would be in a 6-month period where it's not on. Because if we're getting 8 episodes a year, or say 9 with a Christmas special, that's still giving you a solid 10 months with no Who content.
Yeah,
I don't mind having a spin-off 3 or 4 months after Shooty's series and 3 or 4 months before his next one, I don't think that's going to hurt anyone.
But I just think you run the risk of polarizing stuff like you've had that we've always had, but just polarizing things further. It's sort of like, well, no, I don't, I don't get on with this doctor. I'd much rather have more series of this doctor and less series of that doctor. And it's sort of like, well, no, do you know what? This is the guy who's there, and he's been brought in to do the job.
That's going to happen anyway. It always has happened. It always will. It's happening right now.
I just think if you do spin-offs around other characters that aren't the Doctor, it's actually more beneficial to the universe of the show because it expands the universe more. I think
Spin-off and stuff.
yeah, if you do spin-offs with another Doctor, I think I do agree with you that it does stay on Ncuti Gatwa, not only because he's the only Doctor that would have had that, but number two, if you have a Doctor Who series for 9 months and then your spin-off is exactly the same, just with a different Doctor, it sort of defeats the purpose of the main show and doesn't make them feel much different. Whereas if you were to do, I'm not saying unit specifically, but if you were to do like an Earthbound show or a show based on a different planet, it does allow for variations in different genre.
I've had a theory.
It wouldn't be exactly the same because each different Doctor brings different characters, different situations, and different perspectives.
I've had a theory that if the rumoured spin-off is to go ahead and it is a 5-part, 6-part drama, I feel that perhaps this parked Doctor may come into play very slightly with the unit team. That's where I think something might happen with that, and maybe we might see the end of this parked Doctor, who is by this point healed. Perhaps he might just need a year. He might just need a year with his best friend doing nothing. But we might see the end of that, and we may just sort of see him disappear, and that's where the timeline catches up. I just think with this specific bi-generation, I feel that when the 14th Doctor's healed, when the 14th Doctor dies, that's when timelines mess up, and the 15th Doctor, at that point of regeneration, is brought forward or back.
You said they're doing therapy in different places, aren't they?
I just feel that when the 14th Doctor dies, that is when Ncuti appears, but the regeneration's brought back.
So Ncuti basically just teleports to that moment. Okay, I kind of like that. I think I could give to a good cliffhanger of why Ncuti Gatwa just ends up somewhere random. I mean, say that like the 14th Doctor's ended up on some planet with a bunch of Daleks on it, or Weeping Angel, what have you, or whatever you want. But yeah,
I mean, that would be quite interesting though, because that means that at that point in his own timeline, Ncuti Gatwa will be walking around with an open shirt in his pants. So that makes you wonder what he's doing.
Not necessarily. He might just sort of disappear in all of his clothes. You know, like when Yoda dies in Star Wars, it just sort of be.
Yeah. But no, I think the bi-generation thing is we're starting to keep an eye on and see how it develops. And because I don't like the idea of just there being a parks Doctor just sat drinking tea, doing fuck all, only for the reason that if there's now a world cataclysmic event in a series or two's time in present day and David Tennant doesn't show up, he does look like a dickhead. I'm sorry, he does.
Another thing that I think might be worth pointing out, which the anniversary of the revival is in less than 2 years. And that'd be 20 years since the revival. That's sort of something worth celebrating in some way. So if they wanted to do something and they wanted to pick off that loose end, and there was something Russell was perhaps building to for his first couple of years as showrunner, maybe something might happen. Remember, this is
the 10th anniversary.
Exactly. So they might do something for this one. But remember, this is Russell who cut off the Doctor's hand on Christmas Day 2005, then 3 years later picked that element back up and made the whole meta crisis. So this whole Dr. Donna stuff has been going on since 2005.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, like it's really one of those things you just keep an eye on. But I think, in essence, I don't mind it. I just think you can run into some narrative troubles if, say, for example, I don't know, in 2024, the unit base is blowing up, and Tennant's doctor is just sat there having a cuppa, watching the football, whatever. And he's just like, "No, I can't be asked. Actually, I'm on break." It's like, "Nah, David, people are dying, mate.
He
Get
could
get
also
get
be. He
get your
could also
shoes
be
on."
off-world.
He's
Yeah,
under specific instruction from Shooty to go and have a bloody break.
yeah, but if the
You
world's
know,
ending,
I think all of this talk kind of sets aside the point I was making about that line where we live in a world where everybody's so fucking busy and we all need to take a break sometimes.
yeah, but I'd word it in like the Iron Man event. Say that, I don't know, Ultron was bounding down on London, and all the Avengers there except Iron Man. Oh, why? Oh, because he was told to take a break. Oh, well, all right then.
Or maybe, Alex, by the time that happens, he would have regenerated by then.
Yeah,
Potentially, you don't. But I'm just saying you.
Are we saying that the Doctor? Are we saying that Iron Man are not allowed to have burnout?
Not if the world's ending. I think.
Also, remember the line that Gwen says in Talks with Children of Earth. Sometimes the Doctor must look at this planet and turn away in shame. Sometimes that's all you need to explain why the Doctor isn't there.
I think it's the context of the villain that's attacking. I think that's.
Well, yeah, but
to be fair as well, you said about the whole Marvel stuff. Isn't that like the biggest complaint though, that they have like a alien attack and it's like, well, where's Thor and all that?
Yeah,
You know
I still think that to this day. Like, like when there is a movie and they go, "Oh, we've got this Avenger and that Avenger." I mean, Ant-Man lives down the road. Give him a ring. Like if
Yeah,
you
it's
run
a bit
into,
shit. And
yeah, well, not as a character. Paul Rudd's always good fun.
I
But
feel
no,
like you know, like if you phoned up the Dino Superhero hotline because your house was on fire and fucking Ant-Man showed up, you might be a little bit disappointed. You know,
yeah,
I'd be sitting there going like, where's Spider-Man? Where's Captain America?
I
you'd be
mean,
more
yeah.
disappointed if it was Hawkeye.
I mean,
No, I love
I
Hawkeye.
like Hawkeye.
I like Hawkeye.
Boy,
see, it's unfortunately it's sort of it's all blurred lines, and that's why it's sort
welcome to my
of
world.
it's because the thing is one of the things that has always been about and yeah, that they've said about the Doctor is that he doesn't do goodbyes, he doesn't like to stick around too long, he finds it too difficult, he wants to keep moving because it's too hard and too tough, and it's sort of you run the I don't want to change the DNA too much of what this character is.
But also, it's nice for that character
Well,
to do that.
yeah. But
And
it's whether you want to do it through your principal character or whether you want to do it through one of your other characters, to make an analogy. That's the thing, because it's sort of you are doing something intrinsic with your principal character, and it's the idea of change and moving forward, and that's I said it a little bit more eloquently on the podcast, but it's that's how I sort of feel. It's a little bit like, do you know what I mean?
I think as well, B, if you made a really good point about like it's sort of not really a prize, because say for the example, the Doctor is settling down for a decent amount of time, he's basically watching them die. I mean, he might not be there for the 40 years or whatever, and but like it's not. We've seen that that's the reason the Doctor doesn't sit down is because he can't deal with that trauma. Now he's got to sit there because he's been told by his future generation, mate, if you just sit down and eat chicken whatever for a bit.
Hang on, we don't actually know that a bi-generated Doctor doesn't age. I mean, what we've got here is an explanation, for example, for the older Doctors on the Guardian of the Edge, an explanation for the older appearance of Doctors in things like the Two Doctors, things like Tales of the TARDIS, things like the Five Doctors. So actually, that my interpretation of it, and I accept it should have been made clearer, but my interpretation of it is that actually this is a 14th Doctor who will age alongside those people. And then when he's, if he avoids getting hit by a bus, etc., when his time eventually comes, that's the point at which he feeds into
Yeah.
the generation.
And this is the point I'm making. That could be explained with just like a couple of lines of dialogue.
It would be really nice if it was explained. Hopefully they'll explain it in episodes to come.
Because unfortunately, for me, it just feels like I appreciate what you're doing. You try to do something different, but also it feels like you're doing something different for the sake of doing something different. So
I will admit it's confused a lot of people. Like people still don't really know really what it is. So I can understand that really. Like it's if you're gonna do an idea and it confuses majority of the people and people don't really understand what the concept really is, then
I think it is a case of it not being well explained rather than the normal thing when something in Doctor Who confuses a lot of people, where it's just that they're thick.
That's it.
This is actually an issue that hasn't been explained properly, and ironically, it's something where a bit of Chris Chibnall style exposition would have gone down quite well.
That's it. 2 lines of dialogue, because to just say that this is, it's never happened before. This is only a myth. It's this thing that we've never heard of before, but it's happening now, and that's it. And that's it. And there it's happened.
Yeah, rather than Donna going, "Oh, you come in different colours now." It could literally just be shooting.
Exactly.
He's age, by the way.
Yeah.
Like I say, I do still think there was an element of luck to the bi-generation thing. I know that me and Beef have this opinion that we just think, it's quite lucky that this thing that's never been mentioned before has now happened. And but I get that, so people go, but the toy maker invoked it by doing it, and that's half explained, but that doesn't work for me really. It's those things where like the Doctor gets shot, and then he gets to get in. But the game of catch was fun, I guess. So that was all right. But I think we should go into a wrap up now of the 60 as a whole, and did it work for us? Was it a good anniversary? Were they just good episodes that didn't really feel much like an anniversary? I'm gonna go. Well, John has kind of gone at the back half of a lot of stuff, so I'm gonna let John go first this time. I don't think he's done that much.
I think this is interesting that you've made me go first, because I think that my opinion on this is unique to most other people's. I don't mind. I've seen people say this isn't a proper anniversary celebration. To my mind, that's bollocks. We had your cameo-led fan wank just over a year ago. We've still had some cameos in these, but what we've had here is something that has celebrated 60 years of the show. We've had a Monster of the Week story. We've had some Base Under Siege. We've had elements of space. We've had elements of time travel. We've had elements of horror. We've had something that's celebrated the expanded universe. We've had Unit come back from the 1970s. We've had Mel come back from the 1980s. We've had the Toymaker come back from the 1960s. We've had references to RTD1, to the Wilderness Years, to Moffat, to Chibnall and Flux. It's covered everything. I get that for some people it doesn't feel like an anniversary celebration, because it's maybe not how the show has celebrated an anniversary every time before, but every time before it's done it exactly the same way, and the last anniversary was literally a year ago. So like 3 or 4 episodes after, you can't really do that again. You've got to do it a different way. Interestingly, we've still effectively managed to get 3 multi-Doctor episodes, because in your Star Beast we had the Meta Crisis stuff. In Wild Blue Yonder, you've had 2 versions of David Tennant, and in The Giggle, you've had a significant section of David Rishuti. I think the big question for me is, where is Doctor Who now compared to where it was a year ago? I have to say, to my mind, it's in a better place. There are more promising things in the future. You can see the influence of the Disney money starting to come in terms of how things are looking, how things are sounding, and just the profile of the show. There's a chance that Doctor Who could be Christmas #1 this year. That's never bloody happened before. Just the profile of the show is going through the roof, because all of a sudden we've got this very cool, very energetic, very charismatic new star who I hope we get to see a lot of. But whether his star burns for a long time or a short time, it is certainly going to burn very, very brightly. And I'm more excited for Doctor Who probably since 2005. Last time I was this hyped for the show was 2005.
Very well said. I was going to go to you because you've been very quiet for potentially about half an hour or so. So, what are your thoughts as a whole, Elijah?
Yeah,
Oh.
you were a bit garbled when you said the name, so I don't think.
Oh well, sorry.
we're
Did
all
my
sit- we're all
did my
sitting there
internet
going,
run
"Who's he
out?
talking to there?"
Oh, I said
English.
Elijah. Did I? Yeah. Sorry. Elijah. If you want to go next, you are more than welcome to do so.
The anniversary as a whole, I think, was very well celebrated. I just don't count the 3 specials. I count everything we've gotten. We got everything available on the iPad, have the colorizations, all the documentaries, just everything we've had throughout the year, as a whole. Definitely has celebrated the show 60 years worth in many different forms. I agree, you don't have to do a multi-doctor story when having an anniversary. I think it was a great way to fill the gap because obviously Shooty was busy filming Sex Education, and it really would have been a missed opportunity if, they didn't do something to celebrate the gap in between. And why not bring back David and Catherine to, relive the glory days for 3 episodes, but telling a slightly new story 15 years later. But overall, I'm pretty excited to see what Shooty does. It's exciting to hopefully be able to talk to people, even just at work about Doctor Who, because it's widely available now on Disney Plus, which most people have. And, it's more accessible now than it ever has been. So very excited to see what happens within the next 60 years.
Connor, you're up, mate.
So, we've had so much, and one thing I've noticed, so as some may know, I've been collating a Google Drive and a hard drive full of all the content that we've got from the BBC as the BBC's official output for the 60th. Now, when I looked at that last night, when it's now complete, I realised at that point that yes, we've had so much. So let me just have a quick look for you now. So there's 12 subsections here, right? You've got 60th specials, Doctor Who Unleashed, Tales of the TARDIS, Children in Need, the Daleks in cover. Then you've got the Daleks in colour. Then you've got additional bonus material, which is all the short little bits that they put out on YouTube, etc. Then you've got, from Big Finish, you've got Once and Future. Some people, it's like a bit Marmite for some people, that. Then you've got all the BBC Sounds content. So you've had 2 documentaries. You've had the concert. Then you've got the updated Adventure in Space and Time. Then you've got the official Doctor Who podcast. Then the Envision commentaries. Then the behind-the-scenes 15-minute shorts that they put on YouTube after. And then you've got the additional programming from the BBC, such as the Bargain Hunt special. There was the Blue Peter special. Then there was also the One Show and all these various other bits that Doctor Who have appeared in from the BBC. And then also on iPlayer, they've dropped everything that is available, and it's signed and audio described. Doctor Who is everywhere.
And properly subtitled, which it's very often not been in the past.
And there we are. Doctor Who is everywhere and it's for everyone, and we have been spoiled. And the quality of the 3 episodes we've had have been spectacular. I think this is the best way to celebrate the anniversary, and it goes to show that no, you don't need doctors meeting each other and arguing and going, ha, you're the scatty one and I'm the mental one. You don't need it. It's just do something new, celebrate the show's history while doing something new and pleasing the fans and making it appeal to a general audience. And this is exactly what it's done. And you know what? I've loved every single little bit of it.
Is that a
That's my
TV?
opinion, Alex.
There you
Is
go.
that, is that a TV detective van I can see pulling up outside your window?
Yeah, yeah. I'll go next because I'm really mixed on this. I think as for everyone else and for people that are all about the expanded stuff, great. I think for those people that did enjoy the nostalgic bits from 2008 and all the rest of it, great. For me, as someone who started a bit later, I shortchanged is the wrong word. It just didn't celebrate the stuff that I had watched when I started watching, so I didn't get those nostalgic ticks that some people did.
And here
Now,
is Jimmy Bond. She was touched by an angel.
yeah, but I don't count that as what I want from an anniversary. And I entirely get that you can't do everything and you can't, some actors don't want to come back or can't come back. And I'm not, there's no agreements with RTD or the Doctor Who team about that. Just as me and as somebody that started a bit later than everybody else, that unfortunately had the side effect as to where I didn't get the hype when Tennant came back. I didn't really care that much because it wasn't a return that I wanted to see. It wasn't the Doctor I wanted to see. So that was just me. So I didn't get the much nostalgic feels on the quality of the episodes. I agree with Connor that two of them of a good quality, one of them. But I think all of the expanded stuff, the iPlayer stuff, how they made it accessible, the television specials, Unleashed being a thing, that is all great. And I think that, but the content itself wasn't as pleasing for me as it was for other people. So I think overall it's a mixed bag. But I think it was a successful 60th anniversary. Like Elijah said, like Connor said, it's expanded to other people. So by that metric, it has absolutely worked. But on my own personal account, it just didn't tick the boxes that I wanted it to tick as an anniversary special.
That's fair enough.
Personally. So yeah, I'm gonna go to Oshan next because he's also been quite quiet. So
I mean, what else has been said that hasn't already? I think that these specials, yeah, okay. They weren't they didn't have everything everyone wanted in an anniversary special, but I think that at the same time it made new choices and added everything from 60 years basically of the show. I think something that I was just thinking of then, and I was thinking of the content that they've brought up and what you were saying there, Connor, with everything they've introduced. And I've noticed how much they've done in this era because of how much I've been sending to my friends and them being like, cool, cool. Can you stop sending us stuff about Doctor Who now? And it's like the same stuff over and over again. And they're like, cool, cool. But that's when I've noticed like how much has come out from this era already and how much, push they're doing. And at the and something that I'm really excited for is that at the Star Beast screening, Russell T stated that the pushing out hasn't even started yet. Now that's really going to happen after after the Christmas special, even coming up towards that.
That's when the Disney push is coming.
Yeah, that's when the Disney stuff's coming. So that's that. Like the thing that's not even out yet is insane to think because like even just seeing it advertised on Disney Plus is just such a bizarre thing to see. So I'm excited to see what that sort of push is. But yeah, very good, very good. I enjoyed them.
Who do we have left? Oh, of course, it's Beef. Beef, what are your thoughts as a whole?
As a whole, I think the best way to mark 60, which is what they've done, is 60 years of the show, was uploading everything to iPlayer and all the colorization of the Daleks and all the other stuff that surrounded it. I don't see why we have to celebrate every 10 years that the show goes on. 50 years is a big thing, and we did a big thing at the 50th. This is 10 years since it. I know we had The Power of the Doctor, but that was to celebrate the centenary of the BBC. We don't have to mark every 10 years. I just think that these are three specials that they have done with two actors who've got fantastic chemistry between them, and I'd put them more akin to which were the David Tennant specials before he left. This is it. This is a placeholder because I know RTD has come back, but what I really want to see is I don't want to see. While I appreciate that this Doctor is different from 10, it is and it isn't, and I just want to see him writing for a new actor And this is what I want to see. That's what I want to see Russell T Davies. I want to see him writing Shoot Your Doctor and what happens with that. These are just TV specials that in my heart of hearts, I don't believe they're designed to be anniversary specials. They're just placeholders. And whether you want to read anything into it, it's that's up to you. What I hope is that as time goes on, I don't want it to lessen, I think, what was a really great story with the first time round with Ten and Donna, because those were amazingly powerful and amazingly well-written stories. An ending with pathos and tragedy, which I think sometimes you do need to have. You need to have light, and you need to have shade. And that stands alone is like heartbreak, and I think you need to have that. It can't all be happy tree friends. So did this old face need to come back? I suppose is the big question that you surround it. Why did this old face come back? Well, it just did. If you enjoyed it, fine. If you didn't, like you get the end of the Star Beast, let it go. I'm not too fussed about this. I'm more focused on what Shoot is going to do. That's what I want to see.
Oh yes.
And that's it. It hasn't been. It's to be honest with you, everything it's shown that the show has, in production wise and scale wise, has gone up a notch, and I'm glad that it's getting the recognition that it deserves and the investment to it that it deserves. I also worried that people are putting Russell on a pedestal too much because, if anything, the weakest points of these three specials for me were things being that the story sort of got a bit jumbled and a bit muddled. Maybe it's trying to do a bit too much. Maybe it's a bit of trying to please too much of everyone. But that's just my take on it. But if someone enjoys it, I don't want that to take away from that. That's just how I feel. That's my take on it. If you've enjoyed it, then may you and whatever higher power you believe in go with you. That's it.
Okay, well, I think that's as definitively as you can get with that. Well, thank you guys all very much for joining on this episode. 4 of us will be back next week, you lucky bastards, on the Tyler's Podcast annual Christmas episode. That'll be coming out. Lots of drinks, lots of fun, and thank God for my sake and the edit that Connor's not here because.
Well, no, you've got a little message from me though, haven't you?
Yeah, but is it suitable to air before
Unless
you
between now and then I go the way of Savalon Glitz.
Yeah, is it?
You do have a birthday between now and the recording of the Christmas podcast, so it could happen.
It could happen.
It may be an early celebration.
Well, if it's not suitable to air, it's not going in.
And listeners, for the first time in 4 years, we'll be turning the tables a little bit, and I might have some quiz questions for Alex.
Yeah, so the quiz question will be back in 2 different forms. I've got quiz questions, Sean got quiz questions. Our annual Dick of the Year will be out, and our good person of the year. We don't really have a name for that one, do we?
The good thing about Dick of the Year is now that Connor's not turning up for the podcast, we can nominate him.
Yeah, that is true. We can nominate Connor for Dick of the Year.
Throwing cheese at a blind man in an LA hotel.
Leaving cheese on Elijah's phone while he sleeps so that his phone stinks of cheese for the following day, or a lot of cheese-related incidents.
The cheese fiend.
Yeah, Beef will be undoubtedly trying to retain his solo quiz crown because every year he likes to go it alone, and this year will be no different for him. So he can go at it alone.
Yeah, two-time defending champions.
Also, I haven't at time of recording. I haven't decided whether a slightly controversial game might return for this year. I'm feeling a bit more festive and a bit more free. So I don't know.
Alex, we've told you before, charades doesn't work on an audio podcast.
Not charades. Reese Marshall, get afraid. I'm going to let these guys know tomorrow.
I've explained to you why blind man's buff is inappropriate.
You can follow John at johnboy_cook. Follow
Please
Elijah.
do.
You can
But
follow Elijah.
my X account is taking off. I'm up to like 1,750 followers. You know, so if I can get to 2K, you know, over the next year, that'd be lovely.
2K Cook. You can follow Elijah at eCrailing1.
2K, yeah.
You can follow Connor at I am Connor63. You
My
follow
followers
B,
are going down for some reason.
probably because you're that the blind man with cheese in the LA hotel.
I was also throwing my meat around.
Oh, but you were. But you were.
Well,
Thankfully, that wasn't in the bar.
stash.
You can follow
Pump.
Beef at the. You can follow Beef.
Motherload.
You can follow Beef at the Beef Head. You can follow Oshan at
On
the
X
Oshan.
and at Blue Sky.
Shut up,
Keep on
Mum.
trucking.
Nobody cares about Blue Sky. I don't know what it is. Isn't
Well,
it?
should go on, but well, I've got Blue Sky codes. I've got like 4 Blue Sky codes, so you could actually be on Blue Sky both as yourself and as the podcast.
Can I
don't do
take
it.
the official Timeless Podcast Blue Sky username?
Yeah,
Yeah.
mate,
Oh,
you do it.
yeah.
Send me another
It's the
code.
future.
Yeah,
It's the future.
ransom that shit.
When your best mate Musk finally kills X or Twitter or whatever you want to call it, Blue Sky's going to be the place to be.
I don't actually.
Be ahead of the
For
game.
reference, I don't
Oh,
actually like
Bebo.
Elon Musk. I
Except for
don't
the
actually.
Bebo.
You know
Yeah,
when you have
Bevo's-
the balls and the first
I'll
doctor
call
has
your
the
best
rock.
mate because
And
you were
turns
sat
the-
there throwing up the X's the other week when I kept calling it Twitter. So you're clearly indoctrinated by Musk.
Oh, I prefer the design than
Bit
the
like-
bird.
You can find Alex Kingdom at Steph Coburn on X.
Alex, you prefer the design? It looks like a porn
hang
ad.
on, I've got a good line. You're clearly indoctrinated by Musk, a bit like Reece Jenkins when he goes to the post office.
Saying because nobody's going to know that anywhere apart from us.
I don't care. That's why we're keeping it in.
Yeah, you can follow Oshan at the Oshan man for him to reply to the certain tweets. He doesn't really tweet himself very much. Although you are a bit stalkery on Twitter. I sometimes tweet and you like it within 5 seconds of it going out, which is.
Do you like stalking people on Twitter?
Very quick.
And you follow me at @AlexKing_Dom. Follow the podcast at Timeless Pod. Maybe in the new year I'll get a Blue Sky, whatever the heck that is. I don't know what it
Mate,
is.
I've got mate.
Send me those.
You don't even need to start it up. I'll give you a couple of codes. Get on there, register the accounts, and
Alex,
for
can I
anybody
have
else
a
does
final
it.
word on the podcast?
No,
Yeah,
'cause I've got one lined up for the goodbye, but you can have a word now.
Yeah, I'll let. Yeah, John, send me those codes, man, and I'll get on it.
I will do.
Absolutely right, Elijah. You gave it a good effort last episode. I'll tell you that. No, you gave it a good effort. I thought you did quite well. You did a nice little reference. I thought.
Well, let him get to it then.
You know, so I want to see what you get this time.
But I still want to do the final thing because I've got one set up.
Based, Alex. Based.
That's what the hell that means. Based.
Based.
We good to go?
We're good to go.
D-based.
Okay. Good to go.
Buttery biscuit
Well,
based.
Free-based.
Good night. God bless everybody. Don't have nightmares. Do sleep well. Please click below to subscribe and add notifications for the Timeless Podcast YouTube channel.
Like, share, and subscribe.